Hello, everybody. My name is Markiplier. Welcome back to Five Nights at Freddy's, an indie horror game that all of you guys recommended for me to play, and I saw that Yami Mash played it, and he said that it was really, really good. So I'm very eager to see what's up, and that's a terrifying animatronic bear. I think that's mostly correct. Comment down below if I messed up a few lines. Yeah, welcome. I wonder what game I'm playing. It's FNAF. I'm playing FNAF 23. It is kind of funny how in most of my series I will try to do like a genuine introduction, but with Better Than Adventure, I've decided it's way more worth it to do something funny every time than to just like say, you know, oh, welcome back to Better Than Adventure. Today, you're gonna see what I'm doing in the thumbnail. But yeah, it's very much one of those things where these days online, we are living in a time when more and more, nobody knows what anybody else wants. If you've ever been on YouTube as, like, a creator, which I guess I am, because I make videos, you've probably seen a lot of advice, a lot of horrific advice, like a lot of advice that will break your proverbial legs in terms of, you know, growth on YouTube. But those kinds of... Oh, no. Okay, I'm gonna have to go and get some sponges. But yeah, very much one of those few things on YouTube that are, like, problematic on, online. Like, there's a lot of really bad advice, like, sub for sub, and a lot of other stuff. Deleting low-performing videos, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of, like, such shitty advice. So you can probably understand, right? Like, nobody really knows, like, what makes YouTube tick. And that is because, what makes YouTube tick is so simple that nobody can accurately predict it. And that is audience interest. That's the one thing which has always driven YouTube's growth, and that is the only thing which matters. You have to make videos which people want to watch. You know? You gasp in fear. I have to put in effort, but I thought No. You have to put in effort. That is why I am fine making the things I make. I've seen people ask me in person before, why do you oh wow, you have real life fans? No, I have friends. But I've had, like, one of my friends come up to me and ask me, like, you have, like, actually decent viewership making, you know, interesting stuff. Why not make, you know, why not expand your horizons on that? Well, because that's not where my heart is. My heart is in making a lot of stupid shit. One of the most depressing thoughts I've had is the fact that I'll never make something funnier than the top 10 boiler explosions of all time video, which... Because it's like jumping the shark, right? What's funnier? Because, okay, like, it's dark humor, right? Boiler explosions, using, instead of, like, deaths and injuries, kill streaks and collaterals. It is very much, like, you know, dark and twisted. But it's the kind of humor that I find funny. Oh, shit. It's, you know, the humor where it comes from absurdity. It's that kind of funny. It's not funny because people, like, it's not funny because of anything in the video necessarily itself, but it's funny because this feels like something that could reasonably exist on YouTube from, like, some kind of guy just trying to make, you know, videos on the platform. That is why it's funny. It's not funny because there's the boiler explosion and I you know. Is this not the correct tool? Shit. What fucking tool do I use? Axe? Shovel? I'm gonna drown down here, dude. Okay. Sword? Diamond, diamond, sword, sword? Come on. Come on. No diamond, diamond, sword, sword. Don't pose that tweet. Don't. Can you believe Tobuscus went insane? What am I referring to? Jesus. I mean, you ever have, like, somebody who you know is kind of off the deep end, and then you randomly check in on, like, how they're doing, and then you're like, oh. Oh, no. I wonder what Tobuscus is up to these days. Oh. Fucking... Don't do drugs, kids. You'll end up like poor Tobuscus over there. That's not something anybody wants. You know, being Tobuscus. Look, regardless of me finding that really kind of funny, okay, I'm gonna have to do this on the ground, I think. Okay, yeah. Because I want this to be 3 blocks tall. Oops. So, what that'll mean is that I'll just make a simple one towards this one at first. I'm gonna drown. It's fine. But yeah, it's very much one of those things I feel online where, I mean, with Tobuscus, I'm pretty sure it's just, like, a guy who went from, like, being surprisingly popular to, like, getting no attention from anyone whatsoever. So, yeah. It's, to somebody who, like, got into the mindset that he's this big YouTuber, that probably, like, it messed with his head. Maybe not as hard as the drugs, but, you know, it's, No, I'll push this forward a little bit, like, one more before I put this up here. But yeah, look, we can make fun of a man who's clearly not completely okay, but like, there's no point. Sometimes sometimes as the old man consequences from Five Nights at Freddy's said, you know, sometimes you gotta leave a person with the demons or whatever the shit. Yeah, whatever the phrase was, I forgot. I haven't played any of the FNAF games like most FNAF fans. Except I'm not really a fan, which is a pretty big difference, you know? It is kind of funny, though. I only know about a lot of the FNAF stuff through, like, cultural osmosis, and sometimes when I'm in transit and I see, like, a FNAF theory video show up, am I gonna say no? Like, to a FNAF theory when I'm, like, commuting? Fucking, I'm watching it, I guess listening. You know, it's a no-brainer, really. But yeah. I'm sorry to all the FNAF fans who are disappointed that I'm not a fan of FNAF. I've just never cared, really. It's not even... You know, it's not a kind of game that appeals to me. It's kind of like Undertale in that regard, where, like... A lot of my reflexive disliking of some games can be attributed to me, like... It's like, you know, one too many people that day have told me, you know, oh, why are you playing the insert video game that's good? You should be playing insert my video game that I think it's good. And then, you know, I'll just get annoyed enough and say something like, nah, it sucks. Do I actually think it sucks? No, probably not. But, like, you gotta not, like, you gotta know that if you're continuously shitting on something somebody likes, they're going to respond in kind at fans of Rockstar games. It is kind of funny. Recently, there was an article talking about how do I say this? Red Dead Redemption 2 is maybe a little bit overrated. And a lot of Rockstar fans got mad, but like, it's funny. Because I've thought about that for years. Because so much of the thing which, like, people talk about, you know, in... I guess, like, I don't really give a shit about the game. So, it's basically... What happens, what tends to happen, at least, is I will see... You know, I go online to discuss a game I like, and then there's always, like, that one fan of, like, most often Red Dead Redemption, who will run in and absolutely shit all over your favorite game because it's not as realistic, or it doesn't have, you know, cloth physics on the same level as Red Dead Redemption 2. And so, I'm somebody who doesn't care about the game, and the only thing I know about Red Dead Redemption 2 is the cloth physics. Why would I give a shit about Red Dead Redemption 2? I don't play a game for the cloth physics, I play a game for the gameplay. And I play a game for the story. And I play a game for a lot of other things, but I don't play it for the fucking realism. That's like the one thing that I don't care for in a game. And, when that's how you're selling a game to me, I'm gonna respond to whatever is being sold to me, you know? And I have had my approach criticized. I've been called many things, like contrarian, which I am still very critical of. Because I would never consider myself a contrarian, first of all. If you disagree with me, you're the contrarian. But even jokes aside, I find the contrarian complaint funny. Because I feel like... No, I was gonna say 9 times. No. 10 times out of 10. Whenever you're called a contrarian, the other guy is being butthurt about it. Now, 9 times out of 10, they're wrong. 1 time out of 10, you may actually be a contrarian. But the other person is still butthurt over it, even though they're correct in calling you a contrarian. And, look... I feel like, you know, a bit of contrarianism can go a long way in... At worst, like, what's gonna happen? Like, you're gonna be contrarian and somebody's gonna make fun of you. Like, I feel like in general, you know, contrarianism is very much an overstated scourge in gaming. It doesn't really do anything. What hurts gaming the most is the whole gun and ballification of everything, right? Where people will demand that gaming basically casualifies everything to the point where all it's really, you know, boiled down to is the gun and the ball. And it is something interesting that I've noticed in gaming where, you know, oftentimes people will discuss, you know, what is the issue with the gun and ball gamer? Well, the issue of the gun and ball gamer isn't as much the fact that the games which he plays are, you know, games which have guns and balls, but the fact that, basically the entire industry has reorganized itself to specifically cater to this one demographic of person. And because of that, because everything has to cater to somebody who only plays games with guns or balls, we're in a bit of a shitty situation. Any kind of more complicated or interesting mechanics can often just be brushed aside because the gun and ball gamer isn't gonna understand them. They were in one of the fucking God of War games using Darkside Phil as an example of the kind of gamer they designed their games around. Darkside Phil. If you don't know who that is, oh my sweet summer child. It's possibly the least competent gamer you'll ever see. But only if you're like you know, a bit of a, let's call it, gaming normie, right? If you have more experience in gaming, you will know that Phil is not that far from what the average gamer is in terms of like their gamer experience. Phil is pretty close to that. He's just also a YouTuber slash streamer who's been playing games for years upon years and he still sucks at them. You know, that's the funny thing with Phil. It's that he still hasn't progressed from being at best average, at worst shitty, even after all these years. But the thing is, you know, as I said before, he's not very far in skill from most people. And back in the day, especially like during the 90s, right? People were being pushed towards far more complicated games. Final Fantasy and Metal Gear Solid were considered the more casual. Like, you know, if you were a casual gamer, you would pick up Metal Gear Solid or Final Fantasy. And if you were a hardcore gamer, you would pick up fucking Growlancer or something. Or, like, a bit later on, Nights in the Nightmare. And then at some point, things changed, and now if you're a normie, all you play is fucking free-to-play mobile Fortnites and Robloxes, and a hardcore gamer is like playing fucking Final Fantasy 16 because that's like at some point it's like, okay, who's more hardcore? The guy who only plays the Bing Bing Wahoo? Or the guy who only plays Fortnite? And I'll give you a hint. The more hardcore guy is the guy who actually buys his games. And now you may be asking me, wait, am I supposed to believe that the more hardcore gamer is the guy who plays Nintendo games? And, shockingly, yeah. And that's not even talking about, like, Fire Emblem. Obviously, Fire Emblem's a lot more hardcore TM, but I'm talking about fucking Mario. You know, the one with the plumber, where he jumps on the big turtle? Even my dad can know what Mario was, I think. But yeah, it's one of those things, and it's there's no cure. There's just no cure, you know. You may be wondering, how do we... By the way, I can't believe that I never thought of just... Yeah. Like, you may be wondering, like, okay, yeah, but what do we do about this kid? There's nothing to do. Like, okay, what you could do is, you could write to your favorite game developer and be like, can you please make a game that isn't, you know, designed for the stupidest people on Earth? But, like, here's the issue. If you ask that, like, if you actually talk to a game developer, you realize, first of all, it's not up to them. It's not even up to the designers to a degree. It's, most of all, the game needs to be profitable, right? We have to make back the money in a private company. In a public company, like as a lot of these big studios, we have to appease the shareholders. And the only, like, less intelligent group of people than, you know, the average stereotypical gamer is, you know, that. It's the shareholder. Shareholders are on a level of intelligence so low, it doesn't show when you, like, look at... People have wondered. Science has spent years of research unsuccessfully trying to see if there's any brain activity inside of a shareholder's head. And, for now, the answer is still no, which begs the question of how they do anything. But hey, it's the shareholder, the stupidest creature on Earth. And it is disappointing, it is depressing, it is sad, and most of all, there's nothing we can really do. But hey, look at the positives, like... And... So those are the positives. And let's look at all the negatives of how gaming has been ruined. Let's look at Sony. For decades, Sony was pumping out some of the best games ever made, and then they made The Last of Us, and then they made some more decent games, and then, live service time. Goodbye, Sony. Now they're not even making discs anymore, which is kind of pathetic. But hey, you may be telling me, but people aren't buying physical. And to that I'll say, yeah, they lied. I don't know how well known this is, but Sony literally fudged the fucking numbers to make it seem like more people are buying digital than they actually were by counting like Roblox and Fortnite and all the other shit as digital sales. So, you know, a lot of the first-party titles had more physical than digital sales, or like a relatively equal amount. But they had to fudge the numbers because the shareholders wanted an excuse to abandon physical media to just, you know, get a few more, you know, tighten up those profit margins. And it's funny because like Nintendo has also been in a shareholder bind, and their approach as Nintendo is different, you know, has always been sort of trying to balance keeping consumers happy and keeping shareholders from tearing them in half, because fuck, I did this one wrong. Because shareholders have the power to basically, because, you know, if they own shares of your company, they own parts of your company, and if you don't listen to them, you can thank people who sued Henry Ford many centuries ago for that. Many centuries, so a century ago for that. Basically, if you don't listen to the shareholders, they'll replace you with somebody who's even stupider. So, the choices you have are to either, you know, abide by the absolutely stupid things they want, or look at somebody else who'll listen to every single thing they want and never say no, because shareholders do not take no for an answer. It's a shame that it's a real big shame that shareholders are the way the industry is. But hey, those are the wonders of capitalism, where the game industry is being strangled alive from like 7 different angles. And as a gamer, somebody who plays video games, what can you do? You can watch the fireworks. That's about it. We are, like, one of the luckiest things we have had is Steam, for all of the things that they do that are worth criticizing. They are a private company. And as a private company, they do not have to listen to the, like, stupid demands of the shareholders. And Valve is greedy. Valve will do whatever it takes as well. Don't imagine that Valve is some goody two-shoes in the industry. They're a corporation like any other, but they're a private corporation. And Valve is a bit of a view of what would have happened if, like, if so many, video game companies didn't immediately go public when they saw an opportunity to. We would have had a lot more companies that would have kind of been like Valve, where, you know, well, they wouldn't maybe be nice, they wouldn't be as evil, and I'm aware that this is, like, a really low bar, but, like, sometimes you'll take what you can get, you know? It's, disappointing, but, hey, it is what it is. And yeah, what can you really do? Except, again, watch the fireworks go off. And I mean, look, it is kind of depressing talking about this stuff, like, go figure. But if there's one thing which may make you a little bit more hopeful, it's that capitalism can't really go on forever. It very well could if resources were infinite. One problem: resources are not infinite. We have determined through going around the world on ships for many years that, in fact, the world is circular. Sorry, not circular. Oblatospherical, I think that's the term. And sadly, the world kind of wraps around. And it's not limitless. And if you dig down too far, you'll eventually end up on the other end. Meaning, we can't just dig for resources forever. And sadly, the atmosphere is also limited. So, at some point in time, we're going to not be able to just throw the pollutants in the air and forget about them. Uh-oh. I think that's already happening. Oh, is that a second heat dome forming over the United States? I wonder why the summers are getting so bad. Clueless. Yeah. We can joke about it all we want. Things are gonna get worse. And, here's the thing, right? If there's one thing which we've seen in recent times, like rich people do, because obviously they're not very smart, their ideas of, like, you know, living out the future when they've destroyed everything is hiding out in, like, bunkers or whatever, right? The issue is, that ain't really how things work. For instance, right? Okay, let's say you're super rich, you have a nuclear reactor. Okay. Now, how are you gonna cool that? How are you gonna power that? At the end of the day, any kind of, like, hyper-rich, super-secret thing which you could make will find you. Like, after everything's said and done, after the world collapses, and then after everything is rebuilt, people, you know, the normal people will obviously, what is the, like, would that not be an epic thing for, like, you know, obviously, you know, we're going into the realm of fiction, right? But, like, would that not be the next logical step? You know, like, first of all, in any movie, you know, okay, we have, you know, the people have wrestled control back. What do they do next? They find those responsible. And, the true solution to everything, and this is something which I've seen a lot of people not get, is that individualism ain't gonna get you anywhere in that sort of respect. What will, though, is community. And, community is that one aspect which, rich people simply won't have access to, you know? Like, yeah, they'll have the bunkers which they can hide in, and, they'll have whatever the fuck. Like, imagine they have their own little private military. Why wouldn't the private military want to? Like, imagine you come out of the bunker, and you're like, hey, if you surrender to us right now, we're going to bust in eventually, and eventually everybody inside is going to, like, you know, go to jail. But if you decide to surrender now and join us, we are going to give you amnesty, because we understand that you're only doing, you know, things that at the time seemed like a good idea, and you didn't see a better way forwards. You know, come out with your hands up, you won't go to jail, you won't be in prison, you won't be killed, just, you know. I wonder how many of them would turn. I would say a decent amount. I mean, I would do it. Fuck. Why would I be a fucking soldier in a fucking dingy bunker trying to hide away from the world when you know, that happens. And okay, then the question is, well, what if they're lying? Well, then I mean you're fucked, but you're also kind of... We're going with the idea that you're also fucked down there, like in the bunker. Look, what I'm trying to say, we can imagine as many, like, funny scenarios, you know. There's, like, probably a game where, like, they discuss this kind of stuff in a post-apocalyptic world. What's it called again? Something about falling out of stuff? I don't know. He said that he made... Yeah. But yeah, it's very much one of those things where... Like, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it, you know? And it's one of those things where it's like, well, it's not gonna be fine. A lot of people are probably gonna die from all sorts of things, and like... Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's the end of the world if that happens, but it's very much like, you know, humans are very resilient. Back in prehistory... Back when humans were still Homo sapien and not Homo stupiditus, so whatever the fuck we are now, there was this whole thing where there was this big-ass volcano, and this big-ass volcano blew up, and, it almost destroyed the human species. But it didn't. We lived, bitch. And that's sort of the thing, right? Like, we can discuss all of the, like, theoretical disasters. But if you've ever, like, thought about it, humans are remarkably, like, difficult to actually kill on a species level. Like, you could... I mean, you've seen this, right? You could flatten... Like, you could have an alien threat come in, flatten city after city. We have more cities, we have more people. You're not gonna kill everybody in a city you destroy. Like, and that's talking about the hypothetical stuff. The world ain't just gonna end. That's not how it works, you know? There's no game over screen in real life. It's just gonna be, like, I mean, what could happen? Like, a nuclear war? Well, what? Why? It's much more likely that the event which, like, is remembered in all of history as the Great Dying, or, like, the Great Starving, or all the other terms I've seen thrown around about the upcoming El Nino event, will be very much just, like, remembered in history as what happened when humans fucked up the climate, and, like, all the harm that will come from it won't be, like, you know... Maybe there'll be wars fought. I mean, especially, like, maybe in the third world, but, like, a lot of it will just be, you know, a lot sadder. And not action-packed at all. And is that depressing? Maybe. Probably. Definitely. But, like, you've got to remember that, like, there are things in life that are worth kind of considering, but, like... You can't spend your days, like, worrying about stuff that may or may not happen. So sometimes, as stupid as it sounds, it really just is better to, if you, like, you know, don't live in a threat area. Obviously, if you live in, like, an area that's going to be destroyed by any of the upcoming, you know, problems, right? Like, obviously, you're gonna have to start planning out stuff a little bit sooner than most of us. But, like, in general, you're gonna, like, you just have to learn to, you know, just kind of, you know, keep swimming, and then keep swimming, and then if something happens, fuck, I guess it did happen. And, you just kind of see what you do then. It's not exciting. You're not gonna go on an adventure to save the Earth, but, like, that's never been how real life works. And, you know, that's kind of it. There's not that much more that I can... Oh, wait, I should have left a... how do I... I'll have to think about how I'll reach the other one. But yeah, there's not that much really. Oh no. Another one down. There's not really that much worth discussing, because a lot of it is, like, really sort of, you know, hypothetical and theoretical, where we're discussing things which probably won't happen. And so there's no real point in being super paranoid about them. But it's always worth to, like, know that, like, sometimes, you know, it's oftentimes the worst case scenario tells you how lucky you are that it didn't happen. Like, I know I've been reading recently, I forget what article it was, but apparently we've missed some kind of worst case scenario for some climate change related stuff. Like, missed it by a pretty big margin. By we are lower than some of the worst case stuff. Obviously, it's not as bad as not as good as it should be, but still, you know, it's not like the worst case scenario happens all the time. That's sensationalist, but, like, also the best case scenario rarely happens. So yeah, that's why the scenarios and not, you know, things that will surely happen. TM. But hey, if the worst comes, just remember that I'll probably be still making videos. If the internet collapses, maybe not, but, you know, one can hope YouTube.com stays running even after the apocalypse. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll become... Maybe it'll be like StarCraft, and the Zerg will pop out of the ground, and then the music will start playing, and then you'll die because the commander accidentally shift-clicked the Marines with the Widow Mine instead of the fucking Zerglings. Well, like, you know, oh no, it's a Zergling running towards me and the Widow Mine shooting. And then, yeah. But it's fine. Then we've gone from fiction to science fiction. So I don't think it's that worth, you know, discussing. And yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And if you're wondering, you know, what would be the best character to play in a StarCraft game? Probably one of the ones that don't die. So probably, like, Jim Raynor? Maybe Kerrigan, depending on, you know, how you feel. Maybe. Probably not Edmund Duke. And probably not any of the Zerg, because they just explode. Granted, Kerrigan turns into a Zerg, but you know what I mean. You know, I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but I just don't really trust him Zerg that much. Shit. What? What? Hello? How bad is the desync? Nope. It's fine. What? Okay. But hey. How am I gonna... Okay, so I'm just gonna finish, I think I'm just going to take, like, this. Oh, now the water starts flooding in. Yeah, okay. So this I will set as, you know, where we will go for the other one. But, hey, that's just a theory. I'm gonna drown. Okay, we're fine. See you next time, goodbye.